Welcome in the trenches for week 7. Tanner Kern joined alongside Max Forde. Max, a lot has gone on in the NFL this week. We already have week 7 underway. Your Saints kicked it off in a very, very poor fashion. So how do you feel about them just as a fan?
Man, it's crazy to see how well they started, how hot they started. You thought Dennis Allen was on the hot seat coming into the season. They looked like they were going to be kind of juggernauts there for a second. Maybe Dallison isn't as good as we thought. Then they've kind of gone on the skid. Obviously, injuries have played a part, but that's part of the NFL. And I think Dennis Allen's probably back on the hot seat as a fan. It's just rough. Growing up, they weren't good most of the years I was growing up. They did get to the Super Bowl my senior year of high school, so we got some of those Drew Brees years as I was starting to get a little bit older. But when I was first a fan, they weren't so good. And I know, saw some bags on heads, which kind of call back to some of those years back in the 80s and 90s. But it's looking rough for them right now.
Definitely. The rise and fall of the Saints in such a short time period is crazy because you back to pre-week 4, they were plus 145 to win the NFC South. Now they're plus 2,200, I believe, to win the NFC South. So it's just crazy to think that downfalls happen so quickly. And, Derek Carr was really good. The offense was good. Now, even Alvin Kamara, he's not getting involved at all. I was shocked. I was on the over receiving yards for him last night, and I couldn't believe how much they didn't utilize him. And they didn't have a lot of time. And, obviously quarterbacks situation is different, but you got to get Kamara involved. They just couldn't do it last night. So I don't know. What do you think? How they finish the season off?
Man, if they can get healthy, get Carr back playing the way he was. Again, I do think first game Carolina isn't going to be representative of what you're going to see the rest of the season because the opponent, Bryce Young, obviously wasn't doing well. Dallas has now been blown out a couple of times. So maybe it's not going to be like we thought it was going to be. Clint Kubiak still might be a help to this offense, not quite the guy we thought he was after week 2, but I do think that they can claw back if they get healthy. It's going to be tough division. Obviously, Kirk Cousins playing well. Baker Mayfield playing really, really well with your Bucks there. I see the little green sickle sweater kind of thing, the throwback. But couple good teams, but the NFC South is a division that is always wide open. I know for many, many years after the realignment, the same team didn't win back-to-back. And I think it's happened now, but it's not a common occurrence in that division. It's just one that they play each other tough. And, tough start, 2-5. Got 10 games left, though, to turn things around. If you can get healthy and get hot at the right time, I think there's a way back in.
Yeah, definitely. So, we'll have more of our fandom talk coming up in the next few shows, obviously, as the season develops. We're here to talk about the offensive and the defensive line, the matchups in the trenches, and the DFS defenses that you need to know. But every week we start with our biggest mismatch for those who don't know and just joining us tonight for the first time. The Pittsburgh Steelers defense, Max, you have going against the New York Jets offensive line. That's your biggest mismatch. Obviously, you have TJ Watt down there for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You have a Jets offensive line that hasn't been able to protect much this season when they need to protect. Before we even get into that part of the conversation, how much do you think Davante Adams helps the New York Jets? Because in my opinion, this does not bring them any closer to a championship. I don't think it makes their offense that much better because there's still so many core foundation problems in that offensive line.
Not only core foundation problems in the offensive line, just core foundation problems in the organization right now. It seems very, very dysfunctional. You already fired your coach when you were a game off the division lead with a chance to take the division lead going into the week. I don't have a lot of confidence in their outlook for a championship because of all those things going on. And it's New York, that big media market. When you have that kind of dysfunction going on, it's going to get played up, and that is going to drive that pressure up even more. And so not sure that I can pick them to win a championship or anything, but I'm sure that mind meld that Davante Adams has with Aaron Rodgers will help a little bit to maybe get the ball out a little bit quicker. But something that we'll probably touch on here in a second. But that's been the biggest surprising thing to me is Aaron Rodgers has always been a guy that helps his offensive line by getting the ball out on time. And this year it just hasn't seemed to happen. They're getting beat. He's not getting the ball off. It's just, it's been tough for them.
Yeah. Now, while this is a mismatch, Steelers defense versus New York Jets offense, I think the one saving grace for the Jets in this game is the fact that they're not going to be in a shootout. So they're not going to have to put Aaron Rodgers back there in obvious passing situations. They might be able to run the ball 2 times, throw it quick on 3rd down, punt, and play field position. But, why do you see this game as such a big mismatch for Pittsburgh up front?
I don't know, man. Maybe it will be a shootout. We got Dangerous going back there.
Pickens today coming out in the locker. Mike Tomlin saying we're keeping it in-house on who's starting. Yeah. George Pickens like, Russ is starting, getting a lot more reps.
I don't expect it to be a shootout, but you never know. Maybe he turns back the clock. Don't expect it after the last few years. But, I think this is just going to be a spot where, you have – the Jets went out and they did spend a lot on offensive line. They have guys that should be able to play on paper. It still looks good. On the field, it hasn't. You got guys like Tyron Smith that have had very good, very long careers, Hall of Fame career. Just he's not playing up to his standard right now. And you've got TJ Watt, you've got Cameron Hayward, you've got Highsmith over there. You've just got a lot of dogs on that defensive line for the Steelers, and I think that it's a chance for them to really get after Rodgers. He's a little bit more immobile because of that Achilles probably still. And like we said, he's not getting the ball out on time. So if he's not getting the ball out on time, TJ Watt's going to let you know by putting you on the ground. So it's I just think it's a really good opportunity for them. And also in the run game, the Jets haven't really been generating a lot of push. I saw something where I was saying that I think they have the least yards before contact in the NFL right now, which is also partially running back stat. I'm not going to credit that all to the offensive line, but Brees Hall is supposed to be one of the best runners in the league, so I don't think it's something that is – I'm not going to put it all on him either. So there is something there with the offensive line, and I think this is a chance for the Steelers to make a little bit of noise.
Yeah, Hall is coming off a strong week run the football last week, but as far as protection, it wasn't great. And then just as far as Hall's season as a whole right now, really has been up and down and has not looked like that star running back that a lot of people draft very high in fantasy football. So I do agree with Max. Pittsburgh defensive line is going to have a good game against the Jets. I don't know if that'll lead to a win because I do think this is going to be a low-scoring contest in general, which can go anyway. But I do like the mismatch here. Moving to our budget plays, we have for under $3,000 DFS defenses. The Minnesota Vikings will look to stay undefeated against the Detroit Lions offense. Max, putting this aside right now, I want a game pick for this one. Who's winning on Sunday?
I know I put this in the budget plays with Minnesota defense, but I still like the Lions to win the game. I know we talked about it last year a little bit too. I just really like what they've got going on there. Like, aside from the talent that they obviously have on the field, the culture is established. They've got a really good thing going the last few years there. And I still got it in budget picks because the Vikings have shown that they're a team that they can show up against a good offense and make some plays happen. And I think that's worth maybe sprinkling into your lineups. And also I will say that this week was a very tough one to find the good budget plays. And I got two of my favorite offensive lines in budget plays this week, which feels wrong, which one of them is Detroit, and we'll get to the other one later. But when you've got a good defense that can beat a good offense, I gotta go. But the game pick question, I think I'm still going Detroit.
Yeah. I think this is a prime spot for Detroit because while the Vikings are undefeated, there has been some flaws in their offense. There's room to win these games if you have a high scoring team. And while this is a risk, Max, straight up from my opinion, this one's a risk here for $2,900 just because Detroit is so good on offense. But why do you like this Vikings defense in the spot?
We talked about it in a couple past weeks. I think we had them against Houston too, and they did a really good job against Houston, which is a high-powered offense, has a lot of weapons that can beat you. And I just think it's more of a tip of the cap to what Minnesota's been able to do. They've been able to shut down most of the teams that they played. Good offense, bad offense, doesn't matter. It is a definite risk. Like I said, this is one of my favorite offensive lines in the league. They get after it, both the run and the pass. They have a lot of offensive weapons that they can use. They can beat you a lot of ways. Ben Johnson's a great play caller, but the Vikings have been very strong on defense. They've got a great play caller of their own in Brian Flores. That chess match is going to be fascinating, aside from what's going on the field, just like the kind of give and take from the coordinators there, because both of those guys are at the top of their games. And I just think when you have two elite units going against each other, there's a good chance they'll both make their plays. But yeah, it's just kind of one of those things that it's in the range of outcomes that the Vikings come out on top. If it was a average or even an above average defense going against the Lions, I wouldn't take them. But I think there's a chance that the Vikings take it to their side and end up winning this matchup. It's just not one I feel very comfortable about. I'm going to be very honest there, but it's one that I think is within the range of outcomes. You're looking for a budget play. You got an elite defense. You gotta take it in some spots.
Yeah, I'm staying away from this one. I like the mindset behind it, but when you got great offensive linemen, Frank Ragnow, Penny Sewell, Taylor Decker, and then the amount of weapons that the Lions have, it's just hard to. It's one of those teams. It's like, it might work out, but it's hard to go against a team for me that's that explosive.
Yeah, they have so much up front, and like the playmakers, they can get the ball to like 4 or 5 guys that you're all scared of all of them on defense. So it's just like one of those things that it's not one you feel great about. I'll definitely say that.
No, but you never know what can happen in these kind of games. These big divisional games. Now we got another divisional game here. The Cleveland Browns defense going against the Cincinnati Bengals offense. Max, the question of the day for this one: do the Bengals make the playoffs?
Man, it's a tough division. So I'm always going to start with the division there because you got to play those guys twice a year. Obviously, if you win the division you're in, tough division. They got Baltimore in there is going to be a tough one to beat, obviously. And then you've got, this game you got Cleveland. Even though the offense has been putrid this year, defense still has been keeping them in a lot of games. Offense hasn't been able to score more than 20, so not a lot of complimentary football there. And then Pittsburgh, I know a lot of people don't expect a lot from them. Defense, though, is still one of the top units in football, and obviously they've got a really good record at this juncture of the year. So it's going to be AFC North's always been a black and blue division, but you got Cincinnati sitting where they are right now in the standings. They haven't really looked like that special explosive team that made the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Like I'm not saying they look bad, but they just don't look like the kind of team that is going to claw their way back. I know there's a lot of stuff going on too with the contracts of the receivers. I don't think Cincinnati makes the playoffs is kind of the end of that. The division's tough, and then the wild card is always going to be competitive. I just don't think they're going to find their way in. Yeah,
totally agree with you there. It's going to be hard, but the way the offenses look so far, it's been good for them. So, Cleveland's Browns defense, obviously they have Myles Garrett. Obviously they've made this team look as good as possible because it hasn't been easy with Deshaun Watson playing quarterback. Now you got Nick Chubb back to help the offense a little bit, but this Bengals offense is scary. Like they could throw the ball down the field. What makes you lean towards the Cleveland Browns here for $2,500?
Well, it's okay with the Bengals. Their offense, all it takes is one play for sure. And Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase especially have that connection going back to college. But we've seen this year we've kind of just talked about that team's kind of struggled at times this year. Even though they have that capability within that team, they're not always putting their best foot forward, and going against a defense like you talked about with a Myles Garrett out there, especially can get after Joe Burrow. I just think that it's a spot that they have to put their best foot forward, and we haven't seen them consistently do it. Consistency is going to win, especially when you're playing on defense, and Cleveland has been consistent on defense. It's just if they can get a little bit of that complimentary football, Nick Chubb might be able to control the clock a little bit. I think it'll help them out a lot. Just got to limit those explosives, and I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, I agree with that. This is one that I definitely feel more comfortable between if you're looking at Minnesota versus Detroit or Cleveland versus Cincinnati. Yeah. I think Cincinnati's upside is high, but the upside is less likely against a defense like the Browns. So $2,500, pretty good price here. I think this could be a low, grinded out kind of game, low scoring. To wrap it up here, we have the New York Giants defense going up against the Philadelphia Eagles offense here for $2,500. When you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, again, Max, you're just taking every risky offense possible this week. What's up with that?
I don't love it, man. Like I said it earlier. I kind of gave that little preview, but this is one of my other favorite offensive lines, probably my two favorite offensive lines in the league. And it's this week I just didn't see the matchups there that I normally like to take, and so with that, Philadelphia turns the ball over a little bit, so I am kind of leaning into their skill position players there, but doesn't feel good to go against two really, really tough offensive line units because both, Detroit and Philadelphia have guys that they'll beat you up in the run, be physical, they can be fast, get to the edge. They're good in pass. They just set the tone, both those groups, and it's tough to choose against those kind of groups, but just just what the slate gave me this week, and I think with what's on the slate, these plays are worth the risk, but there's definitely, we talk about it every week, the risk that you get burned a little bit.
Oh yeah, for sure. Looking at the Philadelphia offense right now, they are the only team in the NFL that has not scored in the first quarter of a game this year. There has been a lot of offensive issues there. So if anything, the Giants do have probably the best chance, I would say, of these three teams to get some good production. They've played divisional opponents really tough this season, and they're, I think, a lot better than people believe them to be. So I don't hate this play there. As long as they can tame Saquon Barkley in the run game, I don't have any fears of Jalen Hurts beating them down the field too much in this game, as long as they can shut down the run.
Yeah, and that's another part of it too, is like I do think that the Giants defense is kind of a sneaky defense. Like we were sitting there in week 2 and we had that game against the Commanders, and the Commanders won with 21 points on 7 field goals or something like that, which they were driving the ball, but they always kind of got that back, bowed up that back a little bit in the red zone when they're starting to get close. And now you kind of see what the Commanders are doing against other teams, and you kind of respect that game a little bit more than maybe you did when it first happened. And they've got a guy like Dexter Lawrence that somebody I know we talked about a lot last year, who kind of has been inconsistent throughout his career. This year, he's just turned it on. It's been really incredible to see just big Dex in the middle. He's getting pass rushing numbers right now that are kind of like what you expect to see from an edge. And so obviously Jalen Hurts can move around back there a little bit, but I think Lawrence can get some pressure on them. Get some pressure on him, even with that fierce Philly offensive line. And like we said, they haven't been scoring early in games. They've been turning the ball over a little bit. I think I want to say it's top 10 for sure. Might have been top 6. I want to say off the top of my head. And so there's chances to get some points in DFS there. And division game, always some crazy things might happen. So
totally agree with you there. So if you had to pick one, Max, what you going with?
I think I am going to try to stay away from those two offensive lines where I can. So probably the Cleveland Cincinnati game. I just think that as a unit, the Cincinnati offense, even though it does have that upside, is just not up front, especially not what Detroit and Philly are. Philly, like we said, has been beat a little bit, but we're talking about trenches in this show, and I hate going up against those two groups, so I'm going Cleveland here.
All right. Well, you heard it here from Max. I probably would go. I hate going against Joe Burrow. I'd rather go against Philadelphia defense or Philadelphia offense right now with the New York Giants defense. So I would take that. But it's a tough slate for sure with these games. But that's good in DFS because you got a chance to separate yourself with some of these picks.
Absolutely, get a little differentiation in your lineup, and it was most weeks I look at the slate. I kind of see some that stand out a little bit, kind of sneaky plays maybe, and this week. There weren't a lot there, so you got to try to get creative with it. And I think with all these plays, even though you are going against some tough offenses, there are some outs there that, especially with the differentiation, it could work out in your favor.
Definitely. Well, that was In the Trenches for Week 7. Myself and Max Forde will be back next week to break down Week 8. Another great slate of football this weekend. Max, one thing real quick. What are you most excited for?
Okay, so we talked already about that Detroit and Minnesota game. That's probably the one I am most excited for. But also Houston and Green Bay should be a pretty good one too. So I'll give you two. More than you bargained for there. But I am really excited for that chess match between Flores and Ben Johnson there. I think it's going to be a really fun one. But yeah.
I'm looking forward to Monday Night Football, Bucks versus Ravens. That's the game of the week for me. So that'll be a fun one. Big shootout game, I think.
Yeah. And Tampa, I know, obviously because you're a fan, but Tampa's been a big surprise for me this year. Exactly how far along they were. I did think that they had a better chance to win the division than probably most did to start the season, but I didn't see them being this explosive on offense. And going against that Ravens team with the way Lamar and Derrick Henry are going right now, it's that should be a fun one too.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be we got a Monday Night Football doubleheader that night too. We got the Chargers playing, I believe, after the fact. So got some good games this week. But anyways, guys, that was in the trenches for week 7. We'll be back next week on Thursday, again, back to the normal time for week 8. Talk to you soon.